Yeah. So I'm very glad to see you again, Joe. Encantado, Richard. Nice to meet you, Richard. Estamos aquí en una casa rural en Madrid, en las afueras de Madrid.
En la Sierra de Madrid.
En la Sierra de Madrid.
Yeah.
Como 20, es una proto comunidad de regeneración de la bioregión por aquí, ¿no? Muy inspirados venimos, Gabriela y yo estuvimos ya en Barichara con Joe y volvimos con ese concepto del capital inspiracional muy dentro, ¿no? Que nos llamó y ya teníamos esto preprogramado desde antes, pero al final pues queremos que ese capital inspiracional llegue a todos los demás, no de segunda mano, sino de primera mano, y que les cuentes ahí pues lo que estáis haciendo con las bioregiones y la idea, ¿no? de hacer esto un roll-up a todo el planeta, ¿no? Inspirar a todos a que lo hagamos en nuestras propias regiones.
Mira que tenemos por aquí, Joe.
Hola. Wow, ¿qué es eso?
Oh, nice.
Este libro lo conozco.
That's good.
Bueno, ¿cómo empezamos? ¿Quieren que introducimos nuestros proyectos y perspectivas por como 15, 20 minutos que están pensando y después hablar? ¿Es como eso?
Sí.
Yep.
Yeah, like also 20 minutes, half an
That's
hour,
good.
you know, as you feel it.
Bueno, para mí prefiero más los diálogos. Por eso
Yeah.
puedo hablar,
yo-
pero prefiero conversar.
Yep, yo también.
Bueno.
Let's I don't know, like 40 minutes, which each of you maybe, if that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bueno, tenemos 90 minutos. Hay suficiente tiempo para hablar.
Yeah. I agree. That sounds good.
Yeah,
Okay, bueno.
Just yourself and your approach to bioregeneration, and then we can go take it from there.
Okay.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
And Richard, is it all right if I begin?
Oh, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Bueno, voy a hablar en español para ustedes. Y pueden decir, él no habla bien, está bien, pero tranquilo. Estoy aquí viviendo hace 3 años en Barichara, Colombia. Después de vivir 1 año en Costa Rica, donde fue muy interesante porque en Costa Rica hay muchos proyectos regenerativos, pero es muy costoso para vivir allá. Y es muy como capitalismo, en donde los de Silicon Valley, los que tienen mucha plata, pueden crear sus utopias para vender a otros que tienen mucha plata para pagar, pero eso no es regenerativo. Y también eso es mezclado, está mezclado con buenos proyectos, pero es muy complicado el desarrollo de economías regenerativas en Costa Rica, porque Costa Rica es una república de bananos, si me entienden. Es como los dueños es multinacionales por, no sé, 90 años. Mezclado con mucha biodiversidad, buenas culturas y todo. Pero en Colombia es interesante, es diferente porque Colombia es, una cosa que puedo decir es, en el último siglo, durante la época de la violencia, fue un tiempo es como el colapso de sociedad. Y lo que veo muchas veces es que regeneración puede subir después de colapso. Por ejemplo, en los Estados Unidos hay la ciudad de Detroit. Detroit estaba un centro de industrialismo, pero en los 90s se colapsó y después una renaissance, una transformación de cultura que subió con las artistas, con jardines ciudadanos y todo eso. Y lo que veo aquí en Barichara es que este es un lugar muy especial, que es en un paisaje particular, que es dentro de muchos cañones y ríos, con 3 cordilleras, que hacen es como una forma de tierra que tiene un clima regional muy, muy claro dónde están los límites, porque hay dinámicos atmosféricos que hacen todas las nubes y la lluvia, y hay una meseta en el centro y 3 ríos grandes. Y por eso esta mesa tiene en casi todos lados, alrededor de la meseta, hay 3 cañadas, 3 cañones grandes. Y en este espacio hay un sistema de la clima que tiene tamaño más o menos 500,000 hectáreas. Eso es suficiente grande para decir que es un territorio, un bioregión. Pero también está cerrado con las cordilleras de las montañas para contener el sistema de clima. Y tiene un ecosistema distinto que se llama bosque seco tropical alto andino. Es el solo bosque seco tropical que tiene mezcla de plantas de bosque nebuloso, porque al oeste hay montañas muy altas, es muy húmedo, hay lluvia todos los días, hay muchas orquídeas y plantas, animales y muchas interacciones con los pájaros desde allá por acá. Por eso es un ecosistema muy distinto. Y tiene una historia con humanos durante más que 7,000 años. Es un lugar de intercambios entre la civilización de los muiscas de Bogotá, que estaban todo el territorio al sur hasta Ecuador y parte de Venezuela, y al norte con civilización de los tairones, que tienen ahora tairones y cogis, que son los descendientes de esta civilización. Y aquí en este lugar hay una red de caminos reales entre los cañones conectando todos los pueblos. Por eso tenemos una infraestructura ancestral por miles de años. Y lo que digo es que es ante Columbus y después de petróleo. Porque durante el colapso donde estamos ahora, necesitamos infraestructura para transporte por economías locales. Y todo eso existe por siglos, por miles de años. Y lo que está pasando aquí es, Barichara es un lugar que es un patrimonio nacional, todo el pueblo, es como un monumento, en donde guardan la arquitectura es como el estilo colonial de España, porque es de los conquistadores y todo eso, pero tienen formas de casas como passive house, que tienen barro en las paredes, y muy abierto, como aquí, se pueden ver, es muy típico de como partes de España, pero también mucho de Colombia. Y todo el pueblo está protegido por el patrimonio cultural y también es un centro de turismo por los colombianos. Los de afuera también, pero es muy, es famoso por los colombianos. Tiene una economía de turismo acá. Pero en los últimos 80, 90 años, ellos les tumbaron casi todo el bosque seco tropical, más que 90% del bosque está deforestado. Y aquí hay muchas inclinaciones en la tierra, con tipo de suelos que son hay mucho barro. Por eso cuando hay lluvia, hay mucha erosión. Y este es un lugar en donde fue como monocultivos de frijoles y calabaza, cosas como eso. Después tabaco, después cabros y vacas. Y todos los ríos están muertos y secos ahora, casi todos. Los ríos más grandes están muy contaminados. No puedes pescar, no puedes tomar el agua, no puedes bañarse. Pero los ríos más pequeños, todos son muertos. Río Barichara, que tiene una subcuenca por 30,000 hectáreas, y sobre la cascada abajo no hay agua. Por eso hay muchos problemas graves y duros, pero también hay una conciencia acá, porque en las 60s y 70s del siglo pasado fue una época de violencia muy alta. Hay el pueblo de Barichara, que ahora tiene 7,000 personas, y otro pueblo muy cerca, como 10 kilómetros afuera, que se llama Villanueva. Y la separación fue por identidades políticos, los conservadores y los liberales. porque Barichara es el lugar en donde nació la independencia por Colombia de España en el pasado. Empezó en Barichara. Por eso hay muchos liberales acá, y los que quieren conservar las tradiciones de la aristocracia y cosas como esas, ellos salen del pueblo de Barichara para crear nuevo pueblo que se llama Villanueva, y estaban peleando con mucha violencia por 50 años. 50 años con mucha violencia. Y la construcción de la paz es un hecho de la gente acá, sin apoyo del Estado. Esa es una cosa muy interesante. Aquí Barichara tiene mucha paz y tiene mucha, es lo más costoso lugar para vivir en Colombia. Pero hay lugares en Bogotá que son más costosos, pero la tierra acá cuesta como 20,000 euros por una hectárea rural. Es muy, muy, muy costoso. Como 20 veces o más costoso de otros lugares en Colombia. Y esto es porque tiene mucha paz y tiene mucho dinero en la economía local, pero también tiene muchas ganaderías y muchos sistemas agroforestales. Y en los últimos 10, 15 años, crecieron mucha conciencia por la naturaleza. Y eso es muy interesante, porque cuando llegué acá en noviembre de 2019, para visitar un proyecto muy lindo que se llama Bioparque Moncora. Bioparque Moncora es un proyecto de reforestación comunitario que es en el lado del pueblo. Y empezamos a buscar cómo enseñar a nuestra niña. Tengo una hija que tiene ahora casi 6 años. Cómo enseñarla en regeneración por el futuro. Y llegamos en este lugar para ver que hay muchos proyectos como Bioparque Moncora. Este es un proyecto que tiene 6.5 hectáreas. Es como, no es pequeño, no es muy grande. Es como un parque, tiene senderos y muchas plantas, pero también muchos enfoques en educación por los jóvenes, los de colegio acá. Y cuando llegamos, para ver que hay muchos proyectos, pero hay mucha fragmentación. En el primer año, llegamos en 2019. 2020 es la pandemia. Todo estaba cerrado por mucho tiempo durante 2020. Y en ese tiempo, estuvimos mirando qué son los proyectos más lindos acá. Hay muchos proyectos regenerativos, pero casi nadie está hablando ni colaborando con los otros proyectos. No hay mucha confianza en Colombia, es un problema en la cultura. Las instituciones casi no funcionan. Por eso toda la economía es en efectivo. Muchos no usan tarjetas de crédito, o muchos no tienen cuenta bancaria, porque no tienen confianza en las instituciones, porque el Estado de Colombia le gusta matar su gente sobre muchos años. Por eso no hay mucha confianza. Y los proyectos están en el paisaje, pero no están hablando, no están conectando. Y en agosto de 2020, recibí la llamada de un pedazo de tierra que podría comprar con donaciones. Eso se llama ahora Reserva Natural Origen del Agua. Y lo que pasó en eso es muy interesante, es que recibí $50,000 en donaciones para comprar este lote, que es muy degradado, mucha erosión. Y solo necesitamos $35,000 para la compra. Con el resto, los otros $15,000, podríamos empezar un tejido de alianzas con los proyectos regenerativos. Y empezando en más o menos marzo y abril de 2021, creamos un consejo con representantes por 15 proyectos locales. Cada uno que está separado, fragmentado, no hablan mucho. Ese es un pueblo pequeño. Pues muy interesante. Puedes caminar de uno a otro en 5 minutos muchas veces, pero no estaban colaborando por la desconfianza. Y lo que dije es eso. Tengo aquí 30 millones de pesos colombianos sobre la mesa. ¿Qué vamos a hacer para dar este dinero para hacer inversiones en los proyectos en patrones territoriales? Y empezamos un proceso en donde cada persona son 15 representantes, 15 proyectos. Y todos dicen, yo por mi parte tengo este interés, que es mi agenda personal, y todos comparten sus agendas para ver qué son los intereses, qué son los conflictos con los intereses que cada uno tiene. Y con eso todo claro, como abierto, transparente, empezamos a crear criterios y prioridades en cómo usar estos 30 millones de pesos. Es como $8,000 en este momento, que es mucho dinero. 30 millones de pesos puedes hacer muchas cosas. Y lo que pasó es eso. Tenemos una lista de criterios que dicen, vamos a tener prioridades para conectar las microcuencas donde fluye el agua. Y vamos a crear dinámicos que son corredores bioculturales. Bioculturales porque hay el parte biológico, como los ríos, las microcuencas, los corredores biológicos por animales, como rutas de migración por los animales, pero también biocultural. El parte cultural es que las veredas acá, que son las áreas o las zonas rurales, están en las microcuencas, porque estamos en las montañas. La forma sociopolítica es la misma con lo ecológico. Y empezamos a diseñar cuáles son las intervenciones que pueden conectar y integrar los proyectos en dinámicos sociales para crecer un tejido en los paisajes que son bioculturales, como corredores bioculturales. Y recibimos la inspiración de un fondo de mujeres que nació en Brasil por temas de la pobreza, los que no tienen plata, pero no tienen cuentas bancarias. Es muy difícil por las organizaciones sin ánimo de lucro para llegar y dar apoyo a los que no tienen cuentas bancarias. Por eso hay un fondo por mujeres que puede dar dinero en como paquetes pequeños, donde hay como un proyecto en marcha que necesita apoyo para continuar, para hacer el próximo paso. Y creamos un método para dar el dinero. En este momento fue 8 proyectos que recibieron el apoyo por $1,000,000 cada uno. $1,000,000 es como, no sé, 250 euros, como eso. No es mucho dinero, pero es suficiente para hacer una acción concreta. Y la idea fue para catalizar los dinámicos entre proyectos, para introducir un dinámico de tejidos, para tejerlos. Y esto funcionó muy bien. Podríamos apoyar en este ronda 8 proyectos con el dinero. Y,
Perdona, Joe, cuando
sí.
hablas de tejidos, ¿a qué te refieres? ¿Puedes ser más específico? Que no entiendo bien.
Los tejidos, sí, hay muchos tipos de tejidos. La idea es que necesitamos crear hilos de relaciones entre las personas, los individuos más que proyectos. Porque lo más importante en lugares rurales es crear relaciones humanas. Por ejemplo, un proyecto que recibió dinero fue la huerta comunitaria. La huerta comunitaria es un proyecto que nació durante la pandemia con 16 familias que no tienen seguridad alimentaria. Y durante este momento, en mitad de 2020, cuando todo estaba cerrado por temas de la pandemia, ellos necesitan cultivar alimentos y tienen el proyecto. Pero si este proyecto está conectado con Bioparque Moncora, está bien, pero mejor es que esta mujer, que es una campesina, tiene relación con confianza con los en el pueblo. Por eso los tejidos son más entre humanos. Es como eso, para formar alianzas en el futuro. Y lo que pasó es eso, en el término de 2021, recibimos una invitación para participar en un curso digital sobre el tema que es una fundación territorial. Es un modelo de institución, hay fundaciones de familias como fundaciones privadas, pero en 1920 en los Estados Unidos nació una nueva forma de fundación que se llama fundación comunitaria. Como una fundación por una ciudad, una comunidad, etc. Pero en las 80s, en Monterrey, México, fue un modelo de fundación comunitaria, pero la comunidad es el territorio. Y ellos empiezan a crear una forma de fundación territorial. Y por eso recibimos como diseños en cómo crear fundaciones territoriales. Y durante este curso, llegó una red de 7 territorios en Colombia. En cada territorio, un grupo de fundadores que dicen, queremos crear una fundación territorial y participar en una red de territorios. Por eso Barichara es parte de una red con 7 territorios. Cada uno tiene su equipo de fundadores. Y empezamos un camino de aprendizajes, cómo crear fundaciones territoriales. Y eso es muy importante porque una fundación territorial es multipropósito, no es temático, no es como una fundación para violencia doméstica o para apoyar a los niños, porque esos son temas. Es multipropósito, es por todo el territorio. Y también es multiactor, es neutral entre los actores locales. Es un modelo que funciona muy bien para gestionar el sistema total del territorio. Y empezamos a crear una fundación territorial con un propósito que es regeneración del territorio en los aspectos culturales y ecológicos, por ambos lados, y integrarlos. Y ahora, en el término de 2022, estamos en marcha para crear una fundación después de casi 2 años con procesos comunitarios, con mucha confianza. Y durante todo este tiempo estoy recogiendo recursos porque tengo una red social muy interesante. Por ejemplo, recibimos $20,000 del último rondo de Gitcoin para las actividades acá. Y también recibimos dinero de Giveth para gestionar un proyecto de una cocina comercial comunitaria que ahora es Casa Común, que es una tienda comunitaria. Y también recibimos una donación por $20,000 para crear un centro educativo para agricultura centrópica. Y siempre estamos conectando y integrando los procesos en diferentes lugares en el territorio. Y todo eso es dentro de nuestro territorio, pero también porque soy el fundador de Earth Regenerators con mi libro que ustedes tienen allá. Es que tenemos un camino para caminar, que es necesitamos crear una red planetaria de bioregiones y intercambios entre todas las bioregiones. Hay mucho más para decir, pero creo que ustedes entienden la importancia. Y la idea es que Barichara es un lugar que tiene mucho para compartir, porque es muy especial, Barichara. Sin estos procesos, Barichara es muy especial. Pero también ahora es un laboratorio de regeneración que puede mostrar muchas cosas. Y estamos creando procesos, prototipos, modelos, herramientas para hacer nuestro trabajo cuando colaborando con otras bioregiones. Y ahora estamos creando un dinámico después de Rifa y Barichara, donde estaban Gabriela y Hiro, que es para activar bioregiones y los intercambios sobre todo el planeta. Y por eso voy a cerrar mi parte de la presentación ahora y pasarlo a Richard para compartir sus historias y podemos hablar después o pueden preguntarme una cosa que quieran ahora.
Perfecto, pues nada, muchas gracias.
Richard, did you follow that pretty well? Was my Spanish okay?
No, it's perfect. I actually, yeah, I think it's better I speak in English. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Well, you know, I couldn't hear. What?
Yeah, good.
No, good.
Good. Okay. All right. Wow. Thank you for inviting me here. And, you know, really thank you for all your work that you're doing, all the projects that you're doing, all the projects that you hope to do. And it's for the regeneration of humanity. Really appreciate that. Can you hear me? Okay. Good audio. Excellent. I'm really happy to be alongside Joe Brewer, and I'm a fan of his. And as I was listening to him, as another person that's involved in bioregional development, it's good to understand more about what Joe is doing, other practitioners, other people that we can collaborate with. So as I was listening to him, I was trying to understand how, you know, my own journey, you know, connects to his and connects to all of yours. And one of the things that I was asked to talk about today was the connection between the internal aspects and the external aspects of regeneration. And it's a little bit of, I'm going to take a little different tack initially, because it's important to me. In my own journey, I want to share something that might be valuable to you. I wanted to start with something that happened to me recently. And I was able to been attending two summits. One was the Bioregional Regeneration Summit last week. It's still going on next week. And the other was a summit of Polynesian indigenous people in Hawaii, where I'm from all of the island countries within the Pacific Ocean. They met to discuss breadfruit and the growing of that staple within the islands. What was really interesting, first with the Bioregional Regeneration Summit, the energy was really beautiful, and they're connecting globally in a way that I've not seen for decades, and it's really awesome. The other thing I noticed is they're not really connecting locally in a sense like Joe is describing. So what Joe is describing right now anyway in the world, it's really unique to start building ecosystems of organizations that can function and working together. Now, the Breadfruit Summit with the Pacific Islanders in Hawaii was really different. They were already feeling one family. So they had a culture. They already have this culture where they looked at each other as one family, and they were aware of this fundamental connection. So what I wanted to bring up is something important, which is the cultural basis, and Joe talked about a little bit, the cultural basis for regeneration and bringing communities together, like functionally, like what's required of us as people internally to be a unifying force in our community, rather than just reproducing what's been colonized within us. Separation, division, competition, dominance, that's what we've known. We're like fish in water. We don't know any better. So I would like to talk a little bit about what I learned there. So the inner aspect of regeneration, the original idea or principle was the golden rule: treat others as you would like to be treated. But the challenge with that today is it's mostly transactional. We're doing stuff for others because we know we're going to get a return, but that's not deep enough. And that's not what these indigenous people from Polynesia really were reflecting. You could restate the golden rule like this, and I'm calling it the golden rule 2.0. Treat others as you want to be treated, because we come from one source. We are one family. I am the river. The river is me. I am you, and you are me. We are brothers and sisters of earth. That kind of experience isn't just poetry. It's not even only philosophy. It could be made real within us. And I believe that that's the single most important head, heart, disposition that we need as we go on these journeys to build community. So it's not just the technical aspects of it. It's not just the finance. It's not even the collaboration. It's not even the network building. It's how we're doing it, how we're relating to ourselves, the inner regeneration, where we unify all the parts of ourself that might be in competition as a result of living in this type of global civilization, unifying all of those powers within us, the potentials within us, to be a source for unification of our community and of humanity. And we can start to do that in ever increasing collectives. We start with ourselves, our family, our neighborhood, then our bioregion, like Joe's doing. Now Joe is expanding beyond his bioregion. It's the same for all of us. We could all reproduce that energy and that orientation towards greater and greater collectives. So I'm seeing my time here. Good. Only 6 minutes so far. Hey.
You're doing great, Richard. Just keep rolling.
Yeah, I want to share with you a backstory. I want to tell you how I got bent, like how I got in this orientation. I've listened to Joe before and share his deeper story in a number of podcasts, and I really appreciate that. And I want to share just a little bit to give you a perspective. When I was 12 years old, and we're talking 50 years ago, I had a spiritual awakening, like when I was a kid, and I didn't tell anybody, my family, my friends, anyone. And it connected me to what I'm calling now the luminous web. It's this architecture of reality. It's not philosophy to me. It's something where you experience being connected to everything else as a felt, real experience, not an idea, not a teaching, not a philosophy, but an inner experience. And after a few years, I began exploring nature, the forests of California where I was living. And as a result, I really began to see how nature itself is nature's web is a reflection of this luminous web. So then what happened is, as I saw this connection, I began to realize, as I became a teenager and an early adult, I saw that humanity and our communities and our societies are not organized like that. It's like we took this rapid detour to go aside, and we've developed what I call a culture of separation. And at root of it is materialism as a worldview. And as a result, we're swimming in that, and we may not know how it has impacted our consciousness. So as a child, I asked the question, first of all, I wanted to understand why humanity was fragmented. And then also I wanted to do something about it. So we're talking maybe 40 years ago. So I began a journey, kind of like these Polynesian voyagers in their canoes going from island to island. I began a journey of discovery, but it wasn't really a discovery just of the outside. It was the discovery what's inside. So along the way in the mid 80s, I spent a year with an Aztec medicine woman, a shaman, apprenticing with her in spiritual energy, herbal medicine, but also be involved with the indigenous people that surrounded her. She was really the epitome of a human being dedicated to service, like the real thing. And I was so fortunate to be in her presence as she was able to transmit to me what that's like. to live that way, to be that way. So what I'm describing to you in this path is a kind of an encouragement on your own journey, that this is a way of life. It's not a set of techniques and tools only for building community. It's a way of being. And that is the most revolutionary act a human being can do to deal with this global economic system, which is reducing people to just simply separate atoms, little individual parts. So this is something that we all have the capacity for to do. And then maybe a couple of years later, I was fortunate to study with a Tibetan Buddhist monk that the Dalai Lama had sent to San Diego, and I lived in a retreat center. So I learned meditation. What's really interesting about this experience is I was raised as a Jewish, and then I studied Buddhism, and then met this Aztec Indian woman who also had some Christianity to mix. So it's an interesting world. It's definitely an interesting world. So fast forward to the early 90s, what happened was I learned about a movement in Sri Lanka called Sarvodaya. It's another indigenous peoples movement. It's the world's largest example of a spiritually based community movement, and they've created a network of 5,000 bioregions. Today, they've been going for 60 years. It's not well known, but it really provides a guide to us as a way forward. They've built a national network of bioregional ecosystems, not individual projects within an ecosystem, but ecosystems of organizations, that Joe is describing, that he's building. But they're ahead of us in a sense that they have something that we could learn from them. But Dr. Ari, the founder, learned from Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi's vision was a whole world as a commonwealth of village republics. And that's what I believe is emerging today, a federation from the bottom up of bioregional ecosystems that have come together through this process that Joe's describing. And I'm going to describe a little bit about the approach that I've developed. It's totally complementary what Joe is doing. So that's why I was really smiling as I was listening to Joe share, thinking to myself, how could we work together? How could we support each other? But that's the new way of being, which is, it's not just Joe's project and it's like my project. That's just an ego perspective. It's up to us as leaders to understand where we can support one another. And that's what the Golden Rule 2.0 is, which is, hey, Joe and all of you, how can I support you on your journey? Not just what I can get from you or what I can sell you or what I can tell you or even teach you. It's how can I help to activate you to come into your power so that you're capable of stepping up in greater and greater ways to expand your capacity to bring your local collectives together, your neighborhood, your bioregion, and then all of Europe, all the world. So I want to share just some practical experiences. So one is in San Diego, where I really began to understand the principles of what I'm calling symbiotic network development. So I call it a symbiotic network because it reflects intentional mutual benefit, both individually, but within and between groups, kind of like what Joe was describing. I was in a neighborhood in San Diego. It was a low-income, multi-ethnic neighborhood, mostly Hispanic and Black community. And they had a problem with drugs, violence. They had 40 drug dealers on the street corner in an urban neighborhood in the middle of San Diego County, which is with the police driving by, didn't do anything. The people were locked in their homes, barricaded in their homes. The first community meeting we had, somebody was gunned down and shot dead in the street. There's a dead body in the street. That was the condition that people were living in. So without getting into too much detail about it, what I was able to do was realize that the Black community leaders and the Hispanic community leaders were not working together. They were in competing social community organizations getting money from the government. You had Black churches, Hispanic churches, where they grew up in that neighborhood. They left the neighborhood, came back to worship on Sunday. So it was like this fragmented reality. What Joe was describing in those projects, how he was able to bring them together. Something similar happened here, and we were able to bring all these leaders together and the community, and we were able to make a huge impact. We were able to reduce crime by 65%. We started a food cooperative with the local community. We cleaned up gardens, planted community gardens, built a community and education center. So that was one example that got me thinking, wow, this is a really powerful to release the capacity of people to collaborate, even in this culture of separation. So I moved to Northern Nevada. Let me check my time here. Oh, pretty good. I moved to Northern Nevada, and I was building a microfinance organization. So I was running an organization providing capital to poor people to set up their own companies. So while I was doing that, I started my first network there, which is a local living economy network. We brought together all the local businesses and nonprofit organizations, local government around, building a strong local economy. And then the next 2 years later, we built what we call a local food system network. So we brought together all of the players within a food system, the farmers, the ranchers, the people doing value-added production, like making honey, the restaurateurs, the grocers, the food co-ops, people concerned about food insecurity. That was really the beginning of understanding how powerful this kind of network development can happen. And what's unique about it is you're not creating a separate nonprofit. You're not creating a separate organization. You're not creating a separate business. It's not a separate silo. It's a distributed network, and it looks like blockchain, where instead of computers being the nodes in a distributed network, this distributed network had people, leaders, organizations within it. It didn't cost any money. It cost a little bit of time, and it's not formal. So it's a new kind of network structure and a function. It's a meta network context. It's a food system consciousness that enhances all the quote brands or all the organizations, their own needs. They're part of it, partly selfishly because they benefit, but then you're bringing people into this larger context. And I want to explain how this impacts the political system. So in order to reverse this global system dominated by an economy, which is unified with the political systems of every nation on this planet and the United Nations as well, it's supported by a culture of separation, which is supported by a set of values. And we are asked to sacrifice what's in our hearts and the things that we hold dear at the altar of this consumer society. That's really what this is about. It's about getting us programmed to forget who we are, our nature, our source of humanity. So in order to reverse that, what we've done is introduced a concept of developing of internal spiritual development, not religion, but spiritual development, like practicing integrity, collaboration, sharing. The next layer is the cultural layer. The next layer is the economic layer. The next is the political. We're reversing and inverting this pyramid that's developed. And the impact is like this. In Northern Nevada, the business leaders in 2005 and the political leaders, the municipality, the city council, the mayor, county commission, the county level, they all didn't see the value of local food or local farming, which was 30 miles away in a rural area. They just wanted to pave over the farmland and put in a parking lot and a condo and an apartment because they just thought of property tax increments, right? Making money, expand the government. Within 6 months to a year of us building this network around food and food system consciousness, we did not have to go lobby the city council or the county commission. We didn't have to lobby our state legislature to get them to change their understanding about the importance of food. They did, because we raised the consciousness in the region, and we got the consumers and the business leaders to come together around the importance of local food and growing more food locally, consuming more food locally. And at that point, it just took off. A food cooperative developed that's now the fastest growing food co-op in the US still. There was a huge number of community supported agriculture programs developed from 1 to 10. Farmers that were integrated into the food system went from 3 to 150. Eventually, the city of Reno invested money to build the area's first public farmers market. So the government actually responded without us having to go sit in a city council meeting, lobby any politician, ask them for anything. What I'm describing to you is the building of a parallel society as scaffolding within the old to get us from where we are in this current culture to the next culture and the next economy. Now, I don't know what that's going to look like in the future, but what I do know is that we have a role in this transitional phase that humanity is in to be a nucleus like Joe in his region, or even if we're in urban areas, I focus mostly in urban areas, to bring them together. And we've developed a typology to do that in 12 sectors. And those 12 sectors include food and water, energy, housing, arts and culture, spiritual cultural needs, neighbors helping the least of us, clean energy and healthy environment. All of these aspects, we've started building these symbiotic networks in parallel. So imagine these networks being built in parallel. You get the development of a council that's like a parallel society within the old. It doesn't oppose the local government, but it is a countervailing power that emerges on its own. So fast forward, and I'll end my remarks, is that I was in Sri Lanka this year for 5 months working with them. Their movement of 5,000 bioregions has the infrastructure to deal with the breakdown of their whole governmental system, as you probably followed the news. And we were there, and I was supporting them building a food banking system. They were able to reach 100 or 300,000 families, 1.5 million people in 5 months without the government's help. They're just the canary in the coal mine. This is coming for us. And it's important that we see the potential of global supply chains affecting us in our local regions. So it's not just an ideological idea about regeneration and regenerating our bioregions. It could be survival. Like, we're going to have to really get together. So it's better to work together, to collaborate, rather than people going, like in the United States, they go out and they get their guns and ammo, right, to protect themselves. So it's better to cooperate. Anyway, so to summarize, about 2 months ago, I started getting people asking me to help support them in their bioregions building these networks. So we started a training process now that's going, and we have 5 bioregions around the world, in the US and Europe, in South Asia and Africa, where I'm training people to be what I call catalytic connectors to build these networks. And I'm not building an organization like a franchise, where you go into a community and no, I'm offering this freely. I'm looking for people who already are stepping up and want to learn how to do this for themselves, so they can build this and empower themselves and their whole communities. And has nothing to do with any kind of building a global organization or any type of extraction. Has nothing to do with that whatsoever. So each of us has the capacity to step into this greater space, and holding space is what it's really required in community, because our communities are in conflict. That's the plan. That's the world system wants us divided and fighting each other over politics, over religion, over whatever, economics, class. So the greatest thing we can do is hold space, like being in the eye of a hurricane, holding space for all these competing interests in spite of themselves, to hold a heart of love in its purest, unconditional capacity within you, to hold that space for your community, so that they can evolve along this pathway, whether they're rural, like what Joe is describing, or urban. The same principles apply. And I really appreciate you allowing me to share. and look forward to a dialogue, especially with Joe too. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Richard. I wonder, are there questions? ¿Están preguntas o comentarios?
I don't know why Richard is not self-promoting himself, but you are publishing a book soon, no? Am I right?
Yeah, I'm finishing the book, includes a training manual that'll go into detail here. Actually just launched a website. It's coming out in a couple days where a lot of the materials are there that you could freely use, and a way to get in contact with me if you're interested. Hey, thanks, Julio, for that plug.
I don't know. Hey, hello. Thank you both for your talk. It was very inspiring, and it allows me to dream a little bit, or maybe a lot. Like for a while, but boom, like very big. You know that we are in Madrid. We are just a community that's being born, let's say, like during this weekend, under this Mad Regen concept, right? Like Mad Regen. And of course, hearing you talk about bioregions, like huge amounts of terrains, and having seen here the beautiful landscape here that today Hector was sharing with us, because also people from here. I don't know, I would like you to, for me, it can be kind of obvious, and you will be repetitive with some that you say, but what kind of advice you will have, like, to us to transfer that dream that is just being born now to reality?
I wonder, can I share my screen? Because I'd love to show you something that I wrote today that I think may be helpful. Let me see if I have the ability to show screen. Good. Okay, so what I want to show you is, where is it? I wrote an article today for the bioregional activators group that Hiro and Gabriela are part of. And I just want to show you some concepts. So this is a blog article I wrote today, where we look first. If you imagine that this dotted line is the boundary of your bioregion, you need to create the bioregional governance, which is a lot of what Richard was talking about. And one way to do this is to create a tapestry of local actions where the projects are in, like I said, los proyectos están en el tejido. They're all connected and woven together so that they can come together with the outside world. And the outside world can ask for, I say asking from sovereignty, meaning that the outside world needs to come to the local projects on equal power in an equal place. And then what we started to talk about, what we're doing with this community is very similar to the work of Ethics Hub, is like, because I know a few of you there are part of Ethics Hub, is how do we create Web3 digital tools and other kinds of tools that can help us when there are a group of local projects and they need financial support or they need tools. And so this is what I wanted to show you a little bit of, is that with this idea, we found that there are 4 processes that we need to have. There are probably more, but I think these 4 are going to be very important. One is we need to have the ability to weave local projects. And that means there needs to be a local group that is creating these symbiotic networks, the way that Richard was describing. There needs to be local people doing this work locally. And also, there need to be people that come to the local community and create tools. So it may be someone that doesn't live there, but they come to visit. And while they're there, they collaborate with local projects and they build tools to help those local projects. But also, we need people from around the world that can pool funding and other resources using platforms like we could talk about liquidity pools and validators and staking and other interesting things, and the kind of work that grassroots economics does with community currency and vouchers and whatever is needed. But for all of this to work, there needs to be people, maybe a small team, that are just holding the field to be sure that integration can happen. And I wanted you to start thinking in this way, that when we look at a bioregion, we're in a bioregion, and in our bioregion, there are a lot of projects. Someone needs to weave those projects. Some person or some small group of people can work, just go and, like I did, go and become friends with all the projects and help them connect with each other. And then the power they have working together begins to create governance. And then the very important Elise has just come in. This is my daughter. This is Soraya.
No, just for you to know, you're still sharing your screen.
Hey, tranquilo, está bien. Mi hija
Okay.
es muy famosa. Elise, ¿quieres hablar? Soraya? Ellos están en España, hablan español. ¿Quieres decir hola, buenas tardes? No, nada, nada. Bueno,
I want to plant these here.
okay, you can plant those there. Ellos están bilinguales, pueden hablar en español. Bueno, so the idea though is that we need to have clarity that the facilitation is in all four of those processes. Whoever is building a tool to help the community needs to be able to manage their own project. Whoever is weaving the local projects, they need to be able to manage the weaving of those projects. Whoever is building the funding and collaboration models, like if we're creating technology tools or whatever they are, that needs to be managed. And so the important thing is that we need to create relationships where we are continually helping each other and we know who is responsible to continue. So if you have a group that comes together and there are a lot of good ideas, who is gonna take those ideas and synthesize them and organize the next meeting? You need someone that is holding that process. And so the secret is to go from project to process. Everything Richard said was about process, relationships and process. And so I just wanted to emphasize this and say that part of the advice is to see the projects as like coherence and clarity, but the process is what matters. The way of forming relationships, the building of confidence and trust, the weaving together and the collaboration, all of these are processes. And then I'll pass it over to Richard. I can tell he has something he wants to say.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Joe, for sharing that about process. So I live on an island with 600,000 people. It's one of the islands in Hawaii. I was visiting a farmer who had probably 50 varieties of fruit trees, and she's interacting with 40 farmers around her. Now, what she said was that what's interesting is in the current system, all of those small farmers around her are in this vertical supply chain, and the way that they look at the production and trading for what they're producing. So it was a simple matter of meeting this person, building a relationship, understanding what her challenge is. And what came out was the fact that what I learned was that there's a ton of backyard farmers. There's probably 5,000 backyard farmers on this small island alone, and they're not connected. So I'm stepping up and I'm realizing, and then I talked to a friend I'm working on a agroforestry project on the Big Island, which is south, and he noticed the same thing. So these are the things that you learn in reality, right? It's not just academic or theoretical. It's like you're on the ground and you're learning. Can I share my screen?
Yes.
Let's see if I can here. There's many ways of understanding community. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
So there's many ways of understanding community, and to some extent, seeing Joe and in his presentation, what this represents is maybe one of the four aspects that Joe mentioned. That's been my focus, and it's like really laser beam focused. So what we've been doing is getting really specificity in development in a bioregion based on sectors. And the reason for that is that people are passionate about different things. Some people are passionate about education, some about arts and culture, some about their business owner, local economy. Some are passionate about food and water, health and wellness. People naturally, and I'm talking about leaders, owners of businesses, people running nonprofits, local government departments, they seem to form into these sectors. So the process of weaving is better. My advice is you start with one area of community. Like with Julio, we have been talking about building a local food system network with the Crypto Commons folks south of Vienna, Austria, and also in Granada, Spain. So that's a really specific kind of task. It's part of what Joe was saying, but it's a specific entry point to focus on one area. And then just the one last thing I'm going to share is, well, let's see here. Hold on a second. This is kind of, let me look at this. Hold on, please. It's just a little bit of methodology and just make it quick. So this is basically a map of how you weave a community together. And it starts with clusters. And this is an example of your food system. So you're talking about food banking, restaurant associations, farmers markets, food co-ops, farming hubs, restaurateur associations. Once you start identifying key leaders in your region, then you start organically building relationship, and then you start to the process of connecting them. You basically become the beginnings of a distributed network, but it's first a hub and spoke network where you're in the center and you start making these connections. As you follow the breadcrumb trail of relationships, in your region, you'll find the ones that really are in alignment with you. Those are the ones you want. You don't want just anybody. You want people that are ready for collaboration and see the problem of fragmentation and silos. Get those people on board first. And before you have this first meeting where you form a distributed network hub, you spend 30 to 60 days doing this groundwork, getting to know people, these leaders. And this, I found 2 weeks ago, a Samoan from American Samoa, an islander, expressed Polynesian methodology, which is very similar. You don't start by having a big meeting. You start with individual meetings, separate meetings, getting together with them, sharing your energy with them, cultivating their interest, and then you meet with others. And then you naturally will gravitate to a small group that will focus on this function. And that's could be part of this larger idea that Joe has. So that's kind of, it continues, and you'll see it becomes kind of expands fractally. It's a fractal expansion of culture, but also of shape. And then it becomes a self-replicating community network. And anyway, those are some pointers.
Can you go back for the first one, please?
Which one was that?
The first phase.
This one, that one?
Yeah, the one where you showed the first clustering, or is it this one? ¿Cuál es eso?
This
Phases one.
Clusters, the first clusters.
Yeah.
Is this the right one or the next? The next.
No, the next one. Richard, the next one. Yeah.
Okay. Sure thing.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, so what I would really want to emphasize in what Richard just said is that it's all about the relational field. Todo es gestionando el espacio de relaciones y los aspectos y las capacidades de relaciones entre humanos. Porque las otras relaciones en los ecosistemas les existen, están conectados. Nosotros como humanos somos los separados. Las abejas no están separadas, las arañas no están separadas, los pájaros, nadie está separado, solo los humanos. Por eso necesitamos encontrarnos en nuestro hogar con espacios de relaciones y integrarlos en estos tejidos. Exactamente lo explicó Richard en este momento. Richard, do you understand what I said, more or less?
I did. Yeah.
Sí, muchas gracias. Ha sido muy iluminador, ¿no? Yo no tengo, o sea, no puedo tener una pregunta porque lo que Richard was sharing, it's like the lesson, and what we have to do internally is the most important thing to regenerate and really. So thank you so much for being so enlightening for us today. Y Joe, muchas gracias porque también es muy, es apasionante, inspirador, ¿no? Escuchar tu historia y también cómo estás haciendo que este movimiento sea inspirador también para todos, ¿no? Así que muchas gracias a los dos por your work.
Joe, will you share like the link that you were showing us before?
Hiro and Gabriela have it because it's within bioregional activators, but you need permission to see it. Because it's pero Hiro y Gabriela, ellos tienen y pueden mostrarlo.
Nice. Thank you.
No, sí, porque la idea por bioregional activators es que estamos creando una comunidad que tiene el sentido para conectar los fragmentados, para activar los paisajes y para cosechar los recursos que necesitamos por nuestros territorios. Porque necesitamos crearlo. Sí, exacto, necesitamos crearlo. Porque los estados no van a crearlo. Los países no, los multinacionales no. Pero nosotros como humanos en sistemas informales, sí, siempre lo hacemos, ¿verdad?
Bueno,
Guys,
big guitar.
I don't know, anything else that you guys wanna share or?
I think next step is weaving this all in all our projects, so we keep connecting and we keep doing the work, right? It's like
Yeah, that's like the second step. After we build our bioregional super DAO, then we will connect it to this interplanetarial bioregional.
Do you want to see the network of this event?
Sí.
Oye, aquí está.
Con Commons, veo algunos amigos. Sí.
Vale.
No, que por favor, nos dejemos, por favor. Lo que decimos aquí en Barichara es, en Barichara todos sumamos. ¿Sí? Todos sumamos, necesitamos sumarnos.
This is the first circle. We will add more.
Yeah.
More people.
No, estamos conectados, ¿sí? Seguimos adelante.
Yeah, one thing, may I share a little about that?
Sure.
So one thing this is the most challenging part of the work. The most challenging part of the work is to go beyond your comfort zone within your own tribe, even your own organization, your own political affiliation, religious affiliation, to be able to reach out to others who have a common interest, but they may not know it yet. So the frame that you use, the context that you share with them is very important, that it's not laden with any kind of in-group languaging. In other words, I've seen this a lot in the regeneration community, where the focus seems to be sometimes on only bringing together, for example, agriculturalists who are already regenerative, and they're not including, farmers that might still be using some conventional ag techniques or organizations. What we found is when you bring together everybody, even those that may not currently be seen as regenerative, you allow them to grow. You allow them to grow and expand. That is, I would call that radical inclusivity. It's not inclusivity, it's radical inclusivity. It is so important, else you will just create another silo. So the secret is this inner work. So that takes us, that's what the inner work of regeneration, in my opinion, is. It's acknowledging when we have these, let's say, shadow, this dark part of ourselves that might be judging others who differ politically, or who have a different religious belief, or somebody who might have a different view of even regeneration. When you can include them all, and you can, in your strategy, how you actually reach out to these people, if you consciously go beyond your in-group, that's how you will build your network. It's because then you're reaching information that you don't have in your own network. If you just stay with the same groups and types of folks, you're going to develop like an island. It's like an island where you just have a bunch of, people. They're going to be all inbred, genetically. What we're talking about is consciously reaching out. Does that make sense? What do you guys think?
A lot. If I may share on that, I think that's the most difficult part of inner regeneration is to face your own shadow, right? And to make peace with your shadows. Because also in this, los tejidos, que yo was mentioned before, I think that's when we break in relationships, it's also because we see in each other our own shadows, and that is what's broken and bringing conflicts to community, and avoid it to let's say reach the dream just because personal conflicts and miscommunications and dumb stuff, right? Just because this other guy is making me feel wrong, I just want to cut all with that, and we don't remember about that's ourselves, right? It's not the other, it's just that within you. So what if we just fix that and let's just work for the better? Be radical, inclusive, and embrace those shadows and hug them, and also recognize that in each other and be gentle with that, right? So thank you for making me remember also the thing.
Oh, sí. Y más que romper los ciclos de trauma es integrar los dinámicos de trauma, porque hay mucho trauma. Por ejemplo, acá en Barichara, un tema muy importante es agua. Tenemos muchos problemas con agua, pero agua puede integrar todos. Todos pueden participar en la recuperación de las subcuencas. Todos. Pero el problema que tenemos acá es que en el pasado, muchos conflictos peleando sobre agua. Y lo que dicen aquí es que el agua sale cuando estamos peleando. Y no regresa sin integrarnos, sin sumamos. Necesitamos sumarnos para recuperar el agua. Y esa es literalmente la verdad. Si miramos dos vecinos peleando sobre el agua se va. Chao, nos vemos. Pero si podemos cooperar, ¿sí? Si podemos crear sistemas por retención del agua, cosechas de lluvia, etcétera, etcétera, crear las circulaciones robustas, y lo tenemos agua. Y eso es muy importante para saber que la fragmentación no es solo en mente, es en todo el ser. Sí, es en todo el ser.
Yeah.
Por eso necesitamos crear la unificación de ser para tener la paz dentro de nuestro ser, para compartir con otros como nosotros, como lo mismo por ambos lados.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
We need to face the Moloch.
Face the Moloch.
Yeah.
Bueno,
See you soon, guys.
bueno, muchas gracias por recibirnos. Richard, it was so much fun to hang out.
Yeah,
Sorry,
thank
I've been bad about getting back to you. I've been so busy.
No, it's good getting to know more about what you're doing and your plan, and how we might work together. Maybe we should talk another time.
Yeah, we need to talk about it. Maybe tomorrow we will write you a mail or something.
Sounds good. All right.
Bueno, hasta luego.
Okay. All right. Good night. See you later.
Chao.
Bye, Joe.